John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. John Anik and Kenny Florian.
I f***ing love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole. They're a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, John Anik and Kenny Florian.
Good Monday to you. Might not be Monday where some of you are and when some of you ingest this show, but for anybody joining us live, wherever you may be, we appreciate the heck out of that. Good to have you with us. Monday, October 21, the year's 2024. It is episode 520 of the Anik and Florian podcast. Kenny Florian, how we doing?
What's happening, dude? The Texas hat, huh? Is that a Texas hat?
Texas Travis Matthew today, you know.
There we go. Okay.
You know what else I have is a Taylor Swift Eras Tour wristband.
Oh, snap.
I didn't go, though. So last night in Miami, Hard Rock Stadium, Miami Gardens, about 45 minutes from here, Taylor Swift, I believe, wrapped up the Miami portion of her Eras Tour. And my daughters were in the building. And
nice.
I am not somebody who usually has envy or jealousy or fear of missing out, but I really, even though I would not classify myself as a Swiftie, I very much wanted to be in the building last night. I deferred to my wife. I am thousands of dollars poorer today, but I felt like it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and my daughters had an absolute blast. They're hurting for certain this morning.
They better be grateful to Mr. Anik. They better be grateful.
Well,
are they?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I hope they're just drenched in gratitude. One of my kids is actually downstairs because she couldn't bite the bullet and do a swim test this morning after getting home at 1 o'clock in the morning. But shout out to everybody who attended Taylor Swift in Miami, and for everybody for whom that falls on deaf ears. I'm just, it's interesting when you're like paying for a Super Bowl ticket. In the case of, for me and my twin brother a few years ago, that was the last Brady Belichick Super Bowl, and it's the best $4,500 I ever spent. But I'm sitting down getting ready to like purchase these Taylor Swift tickets or not. And, it's like, how much money do you actually spend on this, right? Like, what is your budget exactly?
Impressive. Yeah.
All right. So a lot to get to today. We will talk to Daniel Cormier coming up. Ken Flo just completely fucking no-sold me on the Taylor Swift stuff. So maybe out there, somebody out there cares. Maybe Longo cares. Longo coming up in an hour. Daniel Cormier scheduled to join us in 45 minutes. And coming up in about 10 minutes, live from Abu Dhabi, UFC featherweight contender Dan Ige and Extreme Couture head coach Eric Nicksick. They got wheels on the ground. They're training later tonight, I believe. And Nicksick just came from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, where Francis Ngannou, of course, had a, if not sport-altering, monumental win to add to his heavyweight legacy. But a lot to get to today. And to that end, headlines brought to you by Cuervo. Now's a good time to enjoy the tequila that invented tequila. It was UFC Fight Night, Hernandez versus Pereira. And this Anthony Hernandez is a real problem. We have spent so much time on these airwaves, Kenny, over the last several weeks and months, talking about Dricus du Plessis and the value of this UFC middleweight division in 2024. And we got another bona fide contender. It is not Michel de Molador Pereira. It is Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. What do you think of the main event?
Yeah, that's right. And I think it played out like a lot of us thought. However, bad my picks were for this week, maybe the best the worst that I've ever done with picks. But in regards to this fight, this is the way I kind of saw it. It was either going to be early Pereira, where he had a good opportunity where he hurt Hernandez at a certain point in round one, wasn't able to get the job done. And because of that, Fluffy Hernandez came back to haunt him repeatedly, round after round. And I thought it was a brilliant performance. This was a classic Anthony Fluffy Hernandez performance where he utilized his grappling to great effect. He set up his entries into his legs and into the body with good striking. And then once he got Pereira on the ground, he was absolutely relentless. He drained him early and then took full advantage. And I said something to the effect of, don't know how good of a nail Pereira is. Well, he actually proved that he is a good nail. He can take a beating. There, at no point did I see him quitting, but man, what heart he showed, just technically wasn't able to keep up.
And Hernandez certainly can play the role of the hammer, Kenny. I thought he really acquitted himself well over 5 rounds. And the last time we had a fighter meeting with Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, we talked to him about the value of a main event. And I thought it was interesting that now he found himself in a main event. So what do you think about his style and his ability to sort of impose his will as the challenges do get stiffer? Because Michel Pereira obviously had not lost in a long time, but I don't have to tell you about the murderer's row that now awaits Anthony Fluffy Hernandez.
For sure. We've talked about this several times and how I believe that the 185-pound division in the UFC is the best it's ever been. So now he's going to face not only the level of athleticism that guys like Pereira possess, but also a high level of technical skill. And I think Hernandez is ready for that next level to prove that he can go against, guys like the Brendan Allens, the Cannoniers, the Vittoris, that kind of level of fighter. And, he has this style that is absolutely menacing and perhaps shine brightest in a 5-round setting. So I'm curious to see how he does face some of these these bigger names and higher level guys.
It is interesting when you compare middleweight title reigns of eras past. And I know I was roundly criticized for suggesting that maybe Israel Adesanya's middleweight title reign was greater than Anderson Silva's. Certainly it was not in terms of length and overall just mystique and aura and everything else. But in terms of the modern era of mixed martial arts and the guys that you're fighting, like Dricus du Plessis, as everybody now knows, has stacked wins right now against Robert Whittaker, Sean Strickland, and Israel Adesanya, 3 of the bona fide elites of his era. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens for Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. Anything on Michel Pereira in defeat, just in terms of how he handles this setback? It's not as though he's long in the tooth.
Yeah, well, I'll say this. I think that he proved to a lot of people that he can't take punishment and try to fight back. I think on a technical level, he probably found out that his grappling needs to be at a much higher level, and perhaps even his conditioning. But I don't know a whole lot of guys that can keep up with that level of pace that Anthony Fluffy Hernandez brings. So for him, he just needs to tighten up his grappling significantly, especially in regards to his ability to get back to his feet once he goes there.
Headlines brought to you by Cuervo, ANIKFLORIANPODCAST here on the DraftKings Network. Kenny, I believe you can see that populated middleweight top 15. And I guess things are happening at a pretty good time, all things considered, for Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. A lot of these guys are not matched up at present. A lot of them are coming off big wins recently. Caio Borralho, Nassourdini Mavov, some of the names that are above him. Brendan Allen is there coming off a loss. Any of those names, if Anthony Fluffy Hernandez had an actual call out of a name, I did miss that. I was watching on mute at that point in time on my cellular telephone. How was E+ for you this weekend, Ken Flo? I hate to put you on the spot.
What do I think as far as who I think you should fight? Is that what you're asking?
No, I said I was interjecting and saying, how was E+ for you this weekend?
It was not great. It was not
great.
I
saw some complaints online. For me, it was not great as well, as far as the digital streaming component is concerned. But in terms of that top 15, all indications are that Dricus du Plessis is going to defend the title in Sydney, Australia against Sean Strickland. Is he taking some time? Whittaker, of course, has big business with Khamzat Chimaev this weekend. We'll touch on that a little bit today, and then later in the week, you'll get a prediction from Ken Flo. But of those other middleweight contenders, what do you think it's going to be for Anthony fucking Hernandez?
Listen, I think he matches up very well against a guy like a Brandon Allen, a Jared Cannonier, and a Marvin Vittori. And I think once you get into that kind of middle level of the top 15, that's where it's really a truth teller to see how, what his ceiling is like. And I think those are all very good matchups. Hernandez has proven to be an elite grappler in that division. And I think those are all 3 good options.
All right, so not unlike the middleweight division, Kenny, as we move along to the co-main event, the bantamweight division is one in which you can ill afford a setback, and this was certainly one for Kyler Phillips as he loses a unanimous decision to Rob Font, 29-28 across the board. But the big story here, of course, is the Woburn native Rob Font aligning with Firas Zahabi and giving a lot of credit to TriStar. And I saw Ayman Zahabi just so happy online for his now teammate Rob Font, who did this weekend, Kenny, what a lot of people didn't think he was capable of doing at this stage of his career.
I think that's spot on. Absolutely. And I think that Firas Zahabi is still one of the best coaches in the game. I think he proved that with not only the tactics that Font displayed, but in the preparation, of course. And I think that's where these fights are mostly won, in the preparation. And Faraz is such a great strategist and really looks at ways to improve you as a fighter. And I think he did that here with Rob Font. I thought we saw a smarter Rob Font in there, where he was able to kind of bring his strengths into this fight. It wasn't a great start for him. It looked like it was going to be another Kyler Phillips dominant performance after round one, but it was not to be. Rob Font did a great job of pressuring and not, giving up takedowns at critical moments. And because of that, his pressure, his boxing was the difference. And to me, I think this exposed Kyler Phillips' inability to stay active throughout the year. I potentially that was one of the spots. But again, more than anything else, it was Rob Font showing up when he needed to.
And we'll have more on that co-headliner coming up later on. And I'm curious in terms of the dynamic when it comes to the New England cartel, but Tyson Chartier is not really an ego guy. He's reached out to me in the past to get Longo's number, to try to maybe get Calvin Kattar some different looks or opinions. So I would imagine that move to Montreal had TC's blessing. But now joining us live from United Arab Emirates, set to compete live on pay-per-view at UFC 308 this weekend, is the UFC featherweight contender Dan Ige, and of course one of the all-time great mixed martial arts coaches, Extreme Couture headman Eric Nicksick. Fellas, we're grateful for your time as always, but especially here on Monday evening during fight week. So it's great to see you. How we doing?
Yeah, boys, doing good.
Wore out, man. This guy took me surfing today, so I'm beat up.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So ever the Hawaiian Dan Ige surfing here during fight week, huh?
Yeah, just trying to kill time and stay present, and what better way to do it out in the water, Kelly Slater's wave pool out here in Abu Dhabi. And if I'm just a Hawaiian kid trying to get barrel, dude, just you can't put me near water.
I love it. Well, you
Kill
look good,
time
man.
Kill his coach.
You look fresh. You look ready to go. Yeah, kill your coach, to be sure. And it's been a whirlwind for Eric Nicksick. A lot to get to with you boys over the next quarter of an hour or so. But, Dan, it seems like you've been there a while, if social media is any indication. You arrived early there to Abu Dhabi?
Yeah, I came a little early. We flew 11 days out, so arrived about 10 days out. And I feel like it's perfect, the perfect amount of time. I got my last, good hard spar right before I left and came out here, and it's just staying loose, staying active, staying sharp. But aside from that, man, I'm feeling great. I'm getting adjusted to the time zone because we're fighting at local time here. Last time I fought at 6 a.m., which was strange, but it's nice to actually fight at local time. So that's why we wanted to come out a little early, just to kind of adapt and adjust to the, local time.
And, Coach, congrats on a big win. I know we all live busy lives, but I don't know how you do it. Are you someone who needs 8 hours of sleep a night? Because if you are, I would imagine you're not getting it.
Yeah, no, I didn't sleep at all. Actually, after Francis's fight, I came straight here, and then I stayed up, and then I had an hour nap or something.
You just said you had the best nap of your life.
This nap right here was amazing.
All right, well, we'll try to.
You know how it is, John. You just catch naps.
Yeah, no, you get it in when you can. Well, we'll try to keep you entertained for the next little bit. I'm going to let Ken Flo get in here in a minute, but I just want to get to the matter at hand, if I could, this weekend. Lerone Murphy. So you beat Edson Barboza, Dano, back in 2020 in that global pandemic climate.
Yeah.
Lerone, of course, just went 5 rounds with him in his first UFC main event. Is that connective tissue for you guys, or the form of a common opponent in the preparation, any sort of factor or helpful nugget as you guys get ready to try to take this guy's O this weekend?
I mean, for me, I don't really look at it that way, because a fight's a fight. MMA math doesn't always add up. I will compliment Lerone. He looked amazing in that fight. Went 5 rounds with one of the best guys in the world, and Edson Barboza, one of the most dangerous, most scariest guys in the division. And, pretty much went out there and put on a masterclass. He's a tactician. He looked great, and he dealt with a little adversity in round 1 and came back. I had questions, right? This guy's never fought outside of out of Europe or Abu Dhabi, so that was his first fight in the States, and first time going 5 rounds. So it was cool to see from that aspect. I don't really look at it like, oh, did he beat him better than I beat him? Because, Edson and I had a really, really close fight, but that was also 4 years ago. You know, I felt like I've improved a lot since then too. So, you know, give me Edson now. How does the fight could be different? So, you know, I just take it with a grain of salt. You know, you can watch it, you can study it, you can take away a lot from it, but I really don't put too much emphasis into it.
You know, anytime I fought a guy with a substantial library, someone who stayed active, I always felt not necessarily it was an easier fight, but it was I guess more of a direct path to prepare for that person. Lerone Murphy has certainly not been as active as you, Dan. So do you find it a little bit more challenging preparing for a guy like Lerone who hasn't been as active?
I mean, you watch his last fight, you can kind of watch, you know, that's why I have amazing coaches. You know, I watch a little bit of film. I get a gist of what a guy does and what he's good at. You know, Lerone's really good fighting out of both stances. It's almost hard to tell. Is he a southpaw or is he orthodox? Because he is that good at blending the two. And but at the same time, it's like I'll watch a little bit of film, but I'm focused on myself and getting better, you know, more than 80%. I like to watch my fights. I'll watch my fights and see where I can improve and where are these guys studying to break me down and how can I improve and close those gaps. So that's why I have great coaches. I got Eric, I have Jimmy Gifford, amazing coaches in the game that are they do an amazing job at breaking down the film and be like, this is what I believe we should work on and let's implement, you know, our game. So, yeah.
Lerone hasn't faced the high level of competition that you have, but he is undefeated at the end of the day. And where do you think this puts you if you're able to get a win over Murphy?
Well, the nice thing is he's ranked above me. You know, we were once scheduled to fight, you know, back in February when he ended up getting injured. I ended up, Andre Feely stepped in.
Yep.
And he was, I believe, either unranked or 15, kind of right on the teeter right there at the time. Now, you know, you got that win over Edson. Ended up fighting Diego Lopez, and he's above me. So there's a big plus in that. You know, it's another opportunity to climb the ladder, which I'm looking forward to. I feel like this is the time. You know, this is the time for me to shine, to go back on the rise. You know what I mean? Like climb the ladder. And
you fought Diego Lopez?
When
did that happen?
Yeah.
I was getting a massage.
Oh, weird.
He interrupted his massage.
I'd imagine there's going to be some sort of embrace between you and Diego when you guys see each other there, though. He's weighing in as the backup right this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, he's a nice dude. You know, like we run into each other at the PI here and there. You know, it's nothing but respect at the end of the day. But at the same time, you know, I may end up fighting that guy again one day.
Right.
So
Well, a lot of fans really wanted you to get that rematch at the Sphere. You know, so
yeah, you know, the way I see it is, dude's number 3 in the world now. Like he's right there at the top, and
yeah,
you know, if I'm gonna go out there and I got a tough guy in front of me, but get another win under my belt, maybe 1 or 2, and that fight's just gonna be bigger down the road, you know. So I'm not so eager, like I have to get it back right away, because I will get it back one day, and you know, time, you know. Let's take care of Lerone first.
Yeah. Dan Ige, ERIC NICKSICK live with us here on the Anik and Florian podcast. So divisionally speaking, Coach, if I could transition to you for a second, this is a huge night for the 145-pound division. Ilia Topuria making his first defense against Max Holloway. And I would think in terms of advantages in this Murphy fight, you feel like you've got the power advantage, right? I mean, Dan's got a ton of straight KOs, no TKO needed, right? And I'd imagine when you have an athlete who has everything that Dan has in terms of his will and just his mindset, but also that power stroke, you got to feel like against all these guys on any given Saturday night, right?
100%. You know, he has that equalizer. You know, even if we're down a round or two, and I know that Dan can find a way to end the fight in a moment's notice. But you guys nailed it on the head earlier. You know, that's something that Robert Follis always taught us, was the 80-20, is focus 80% of your attention on yourself and your growth, 20% on the opponent, because sometimes you get lost in what your game plan looks like in trying to find this magic formula. Now, if you're fighting an expert like we were scheduled to fight Ryan Hall, of course we had to focus on certain things that Ryan Hall did. But if you continually do something like that over and over, next thing you know, you're going to find yourself in a heel hook.
Right.
Like you're preparing yourself to be caught in this heel hook.
Yeah.
Because your body's trained over and over and over to defend heel hooks. And Falls kind of taught us that early on. So for our game plan and for everything else is we always kind of I guess like if you have Derrick Henry in the backfield and you have that type of power that Dan Ige has, you're always going to lean a little bit heavier on the run side because we know we have the power in the back of our hand. How do we set it up? How do we put him in positions to kind of Trojan horse that power in? And that's been a lot of fun for us and really being creative in our stance switches. We went back and actually watched the Nate Landwehr fight not too long ago, and I'm like, bro, look how many stance switches we did to set up this hook, right? Because we had a Trojan horse our way in. We didn't want him just to think it was a normal hook coming. So that's been a lot of fun, I think, over the years. This is our growth, and this will be our 21st or 22nd fight together. So just keep growing every time out.
I bet you got a pretty big glove size for a featherweight too, especially in those new gloves, moving up a size.
Yeah, I run the large. I don't know. I used to wear a medium. I just like the tight, like fit.
Yeah.
I don't do it too heavy of a wrap, but that new glove feels pretty good. I don't know about the whole statistics, like less knockouts. I don't. I think if I hit someone, it's gonna hurt.
A few other things I do want to get to before we transition to Francis Ngannou, and then some stuff on the back end as to how much maybe you guys would pay for a concert ticket for one of your children. I know for Dan, it's a little bit of an early conversation, but if I could just get quick thoughts from you both on the title fight this weekend, and certainly if you had anything on Whitaker and Chimaev, I would take that as well. I do find it interesting that a lot of people seem to think Whitaker and Holloway both have some value as pretty big underdogs this weekend. So Dan, if I could start with you, Topuria Holloway, I'll admit to being a little bit surprised at how big an underdog Max is. Any thoughts on the title fight for us?
Yeah, I haven't actually looked at the odds, and I don't know if I'm just biased, obviously, but I recently got some training in with Max when I went back home.
Nice.
When was that? Back in August. I had just got the fight, and he just got the fight, and it was announced. And I went down. I got a little training with him, got some sparring, and I've sparred and I've trained with him in the past, but he just he felt on and phenomenal. And I was like, man, it's a different Max Holloway. I don't know if it's just a mental switch. Like, he just felt freaking really good, and I'm leaning with Max all the way there. I think Topuria is really good too, and obviously he's got crazy power and can put anyone out. But Max is just so good at rolling with the punches and going with punches, and his fight IQ is insane, and his ability to create angles and create. He's a long fighter. Like, he knows how to fight short, but he also knows how to stay long and create angles, and he's got really good kicks, really good punching, and now it seems like he's finding that, true punching power. It's going to be a great fight, but and dude, he can wrestle too. Like people don't think about that, but Max can wrestle, and he's got submissions too. And I know
the reason that fight stays on the feet a lot.
Yeah,
he's not on his back ever.
Yeah, I'm rarely ever seen him on his back. So it's going to be a great fight. I'm going with Max Holloway all the way. I believe he gets it done.
Coach, a lot of the contemporaries, fighters and coaches are back in Max Holloway. What do you have for us on the headliner?
I lean towards Max as well, just for certain reasons, and I think tactically, they're very close in boxing. But if you go back and look at all of Topuria's finishes, I'm not saying all of them, the ones that really stand out to my mind are guys that he's funneled to the barrier and put him in the choke point of the cage. And when you get a tall, long, rangy guy like Max, that is Topuria's best bet of finding one of those knockouts, is because you can only lean so far back, right? But when you get him caught in the funnels and the choke points of the cage, that's where I find Ilia Topuria is most dangerous. And Max doesn't get there. Max is a center-controlled octagon guy. He doesn't back himself up. So to me, when you break down the X's and O's, watch for Topuria to try to get those funnels and get him in those areas. And when he does, that's when I think you'll see Topuria hit that harder outburst. I think it'll be very technical inside and in the middle of the floor. But then once he gets him to those choke points, that's when you're going to see the big flurries come out. And it'll be interesting to see how they adjust to one another. I can imagine, we call it car crashes. where a guy comes
Right.
in with it's a liver and an overhand, or it's a big loop he punches, and instead of leaning away, I want your ass coming inside that car crash and creating violence in there. So it'll be interesting to see the adjustments that these guys make on X's and O's when that fight hits the barrier.
How much do you think the weight cut to 145 plays into this?
I think it matters. I think it always does. But a guy who's typically a big featherweight and max, I think it can add a little bit of a different dimension to it. But here's the thing with Max is like he's not gassing out, right? Like he might have a hard. It would mean something more to me if you're like, oh, dude, this dude fades hard after this because it's a tough weight cut. Yeah. You know, I think he's professional enough and has done it for a long enough time, Kenny, that I don't think it's a big deal. But we've also seen on the flip side, Topuria have this issue with his weight in the past, right? Does that something that comes up now? Maybe something he fixed. But there was a time he had to move to 155. There was a time where he missed weight, and there was another time I believe that he canceled a fight because he couldn't get on weight. Right. You know, so I lean a little bit it being more of an issue for Topuria on this one, Kenny.
That's interesting. All right, I'd like to get to Francis Ngannou if I could, and then we'll cycle back to Dan Ige and how he possibly follows up the most gangster move in UFC history by making a more traditional walk this weekend in United Arab Emirates. But I think anybody whose wake Francis Ngannou has crossed has some sort of story or some sort of special interaction. I can speak to several of them. But I can't even imagine, Eric, sort of all that was on your mind in terms of this fight and this setting and losing a child in advance of this fight and his relative ability to compete with a heavy heart and head. And yet he goes out and does what he did. So what was your experience overall in the lead up and ultimately on fight night?
It was different in a lot of ways, John. I just felt like it was more of a support system than it needed to be like running X's and O's as a coach. You know, it was daily. It was daily checking in on your guy and seeing where he was at and seeing how he was doing and seeing where his headspace was. And I told Annie before when this all happened, when we got the fight announced, I said this would be the toughest fight. Is not the fight in the cage. It's the fight to get there. That was going to be the challenge at hand, is keeping his head in the game, keeping him in the game. There was a few times where when he was home back in July where, you know, we are his extended family, Extreme Couture and the NICKSICKs. And when he would go home, he just didn't have anything to get his mind off of stuff. And that's when he would start feeling very, you know, he just feel awful. And I told him, I said, look, when you start to feel like that, don't even hesitate. Just come over. And he would just take me up on that. He would, hey, are you home? Yep, I'm home. I'm coming over. Boom. And then 20 minutes. And then he's at the house and he's playing with Knox. He's having dinner. You know, he's hanging out with the girls. He's just Francis is, you know, big brother being at the home. And then later on, he would write me. He's like, I really needed that. And there didn't have to be words even said. It was more about just being together. And I swear to you, that's why I felt like he ended up fighting, was because when he got back to Extreme Couture, Brad and Strickland and the boys, you know, everybody, that camaraderie that we all love about our gym, I felt like brought him back a little bit. Like, okay, I don't want to sit at home. I want to go hang out with the fellas. I might as well train. Yeah. And then that brought him back to going, I think I can compete again.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, I will not ask you about Cristiano Ronaldo, who supposedly was more starstruck by you than you were by him. So
I don't know about
I don't know. Well, that's just the word on the street. All right, before we let you guys fly, 2 more items, and I appreciate your time very, very much. So, Dan, how do you follow up what you did at UFC 303? I mean, are you excited about the relative normalcy that you'll experience this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to top, right? But dude, the goal is just to go out there and just be myself and be in the moment, be present, go out there and put on an amazing performance. It's not like I have to do this to make it better. Like I'm gonna do great things in my career. I'm still young and I'm living it, dude. I don't wanna live in like this state where I'm like trying to catch. I don't know. That's anxiety almost.
Yeah.
I'm going to live in the moment and I'm going to go out there and do something amazing because that's what I plan to do at least. and I'm well prepared to do so. And I can't wait. I can't wait to do it against an amazing opponent, Lerone Murphy, undefeated. And I don't think he'll be undefeated after Saturday night.
I love this fight. Feature bout on pay-per-view, Dan Ige versus Lerone Murphy. And I've been an Ige fan for years, but from the moment you first graced our presence in a fighter meeting, I was just effectively blown away. And the world's your oyster in terms of what you want to do in mixed martial arts. I'll get you boys out of here on this. So my daughters went to Taylor Swift last night. I was going to spare no expense, right, to get them in the building in Miami. So, Eric, I guess I'll just point this to you, if I could. Like, if your daughter's trying to go to Taylor Swift, right, however fat your bankroll may be, like, how much money are we spending on a fucking Taylor Swift ticket?
J.A., how many connections do you have this day and age, brother? You're the GOAT on the mic for the UFC. So you got to fucking call every favor in on that one, brother.
That's not my style. That's not my style.
I know it's not my style either. But the
Yeah.
question is, you got to get your daughters into the concert.
I know.
That's
Right.
when you break the Fertitta break in case of emergency glasses.
Right. Yeah. Maybe I'll just violate my contract and place a big bet on Dan Ige this weekend and pay for the tickets.
Go.
Fellas, thank you for the time. Have a great session later tonight, and I will see you guys in about 36 hours when I get to Abu Dhabi, but very appreciative of your time today, fellas.
Safe travels.
We'll
Thank
see you
you.
soon.
Good luck, boys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, my man.
Later,
There
Kenny.
they are, UFC featherweight contender Dan Ige at Dynamite Dan 808 on Instagram, and the man, the head coach, Eric Nicksick at Eric_XC MMA. And I remember one of our early conversations with Eric Nicksick on the Anik and Florian podcast about Francis Ngannou, and we would talk about the kinship between Francis and Eric's son Knox. And this was before Francis's now late son Kobe had even been born. So you can imagine how much emotions this triggers for Eric, right? Essentially, his son is like a godson to Francis.
You develop these insanely close ties to fighters if you're a coach, or fighter to coach, coach to fighter, fighter to fighter, when you're in these camps. And I can't even imagine all the emotions that were going on through everybody in that team. But again, another thing to talk about is the fact that Ngannou was coming off of a devastating knockout loss to Anthony Joshua. Yes, It was in boxing and not MMA, but still, and they say it all the time, and I think it's absolutely true. You could be judged by how you come back from adversity. And for Francis to do this, and knowing his history, we had an inkling that he'd be able to do something like this. And for him to come back and get a big win over a dangerous guy like Fajeda is huge. So congratulations to Francis, one of the good guys in this sport.
And anybody who saw Francis Ngannou's post-fight interview with Brett Okamoto now knows that maybe this is the last fight for Francis Ngannou, and who knows whether it will be or not. I mean, certainly he has made a tremendous amount of money, and thank God for that, right? But this is a big win over a guy in Renan Fajeda that a lot of people, present company included, were pretty excited about. And Francis got him out of there in just over 3.5 minutes. But I just think for Francis, this was a fight for his late son, Kobe. And, I do think being in the gym and being around the Nicksick family are definitely things that are going to be good for his mental health. But I'm not sure what exactly he is looking to prove in MMA and boxing at this point in time. I think a lot of people see him as the baddest man on the planet right now, right? It would just be maybe for financial gain or trying to deepen his legacy, which obviously is pretty broad. All right, plenty more to get to. We have Daniel Cormier coming up in about 11 minutes. This one of 2 episodes coming your way this week. Later on, probably Wednesday night, we'll have our UFC 308 Topuria versus Holloway preview with 7 predictions. But the NBA is finally back as well, and a new season means new ways to get into the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. So who's draining threes from beyond the arc? Who's eating glass and grabbing rebounds? Get behind your favorite players and all the prop bets you can make on DraftKings, the home of NBA player props. And if it is your first time, new DraftKings customers bet just $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Every point counts with DraftKings Sportsbook. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, not now, but right now. Use code AFPOD. That's code AFPOD for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777. or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/bball. So I think I might be able to win a competition in terms of fast talking without flubbing as I try to read disclaimers on those spots. But my daughters told me yesterday before they went to the Taylor Swift concert, and I think they're right, that I would not do as well as I think in a donut eating competition, even though I think I can eat a dozen Dunkin' Donuts in a blink. I just think eventually these guys who are maybe 200 pounds are just going to run circles around me. But I really do believe that in terms of like eating a dozen donuts in a short amount of time, I can compete.
You forget about the power of fat flow, chub flow over here. Okay. And listen, powdered donuts might be a little bit of a struggle. You know, you got to make sure your mouth is moist, all that stuff. But as far as donuts, dude, I don't know. We should do one.
Well, dude,
I challenge you, bro. We
should do something like that on the podcast. Kenny absolutely has a sweet tooth, and there's no doubt that that he can pack some food away. I just think, like, dude, because here's my issue. Like, I go to Dunkin' Donuts sometimes, and part of the reason I go to Dunkin' Donuts, people out there banging on me because their donuts aren't that good. So Duck Donuts was the chain that they drop them hot, and they closed. So if there's a donut shop in the South Florida area, in the greater Boca Raton area, you can certainly let me know. But for the most part, like some of the thick, like crumble cookie, I'm not in any of that shit. But for Dunkin' Donuts, the reason I don't go, Kenny, is because I don't want to eat just two.
Yeah. It's a problem, dude. I definitely have an affinity for donuts. There's a good place. There was an awesome place out in LA, Sidecar Donuts, was just insane, dude. If you're ever out there, check that place out. We got Your Mom's Donuts over here in North Carolina.
Is that what they're called?
Your Mom's Donuts. Yeah, it's good.
That's good. Yeah, Randy's Donuts, I think, in the LA area, perhaps. But no, my favorite donut shop closed, and I can read fast, and I can eat donuts probably even more quickly. So we were talking a little bit about Tyson Chartier, who had reached out to me after a Calvin Kattar fight recently to try to connect with Ray Longo. And I do think that maybe Tyson was part of the impetus for Rob Font aligning with Firas Zahabi. Perhaps not, but Rob Font is a pretty understated guy. And obviously this was a good career decision and a huge win. I mean, you know how highly I think of Kyler Phillips and the team that he comes from, right? So I do think that as a MMA coach, you have got to have as open a mind and be as sponge-like as your fighters, or you're not going to be able to realize a result, especially for a fighter like Rob Font at this stage of his career. So I give the whole team credit. I don't know exactly who deserves the most.
There's no question about it. I obviously made a very similar move coming from the Boston area and going up to train with Firas Zahabi. And, sometimes it's just a different approach. Sometimes it's just a different way of training that can help, I guess, rekindle a fire within you as a fighter. With Firas, it's certainly more than that, in my opinion. He's just a great coach with a ton of experience. But sometimes just a change can be good, especially for a guy that might be in a little bit of a rut. Whatever it was, Font looked phenomenal against an excellent fighter in Kyler Phillips, and that's an excellent result, man.
So Cameron Smotherman stepped up onto the main card and defeated Jake Hadley on short notice. Charles Johnson with another big win at flyweight. He just continues to perform. And Daniel Pineda retires after what was the fight of the night against Darren the Damage Elkins. And I thought the comments from Darren Elkins at the post-fight press conference were just really cool, that he didn't necessarily foresee himself staying in the MMA game as a coach of any kind. And Joseph Benavidez actually is a fighter who talked within the last 6 months or so about really not doing much of anything after his MMA career, not training, not coaching, doing anything. And it sounded as though Darren Elkins was going to go down that path, but his son has gotten wicked into it over the last 18 months. And he says, if my son's going to stick around, I'm probably going to do it. But dude, what else? Like, dude, I mean, Darren Elkins, man, what else can you say just about the longevity and just the ability to still bank MMA rounds and know how to win fights?
Dude, it's crazy. I mean, listen, I remember cutting weight right next to Elkins, and the fact that he's still fighting, still performing well, still pulling off wins, is a true rarity in this sport. And Elkins is going to be one of those guys who's always remembered, even though he may have never fought for the belt or had this elite record per se. But the guy will be remembered because he always put on exciting fights and put his heart on the line and always demonstrated that every single time out. Elkins is a stud, dude.
And as we mentioned, Daniel the Pit Pineda leaves with yet another $50,000 bonus. Kenny and I called his UFC debut January 20th, 2012 in Nashville, Tennessee. So we congratulate him. Mick Maynard actually cornered him for that fight in Nashville, Tennessee, which is some pretty cool connective tissue there. But yeah, Darren the Damage Elkins. And again, if we do have a whale out there other than Evan Longoria who wants to come up with a pretty decent 5-figure amount, we'll have Brian Petrie get that damage tattoo across his chest. I also wanted to acknowledge Michael Babb, Kenny, who is Jairzinho Rosenstrike's longtime chief corner. He has stage 4 colon cancer. I saw Biggie Boy posted over the weekend, and it seems as though maybe they were late in finding out. So there is a GoFundMe that has been established, but you just never know. And I thought about Michael Babb because he was not in Biggie Boy's corner for his last fight. And sometimes you don't like to always be asking fighters all the time about certain decisions they make. And I remember even asking Kevin Holland back in the day about Travis Lutter. And you're a Travis Lutter Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Is Travis no longer in the mix? And he's like, no, he'll always be in the mix, man. Let's move on, right? Mm-hmm. But I think maybe Michael Babb was not a part of that last corner because he is ill, and I think he's lost about 40 pounds. So Michael Babb, a good individual. He's done great things with Biggie Boy. So I wanted to acknowledge him as well. So anything else, Kenny, that I have missed? I mean, Chris Cyborg, we have to at least acknowledge the career of getting past a very tough Larissa Pacheco, 49-46 across the board there as she wins the women's featherweight title. I mean, Johnny Eblen, right? It's got to be challenging for a guy like Johnny Eblen because I love listening to him talk. I love watching him fight. He beats Fabian Edwards here at this Battle of the Giants PFL show by unanimous decision, 48-47 times 3. And by the way, Cyborg, it was 49-46 across the board. I beg your pardon. But, Johnny Eblen wins a fight and all people talk about is him going to the UFC. It's like nobody really wants to talk about the fight.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, he needs competition, right? And that's going to be the huge struggle with, a lot of the divisions in the PFL right now is, as soon as you beat a few guys that are, the best in that division, there's nobody left. There's nobody left. No one's going to come over. And for Johnny Eblen, he's proved himself to be world-class. And I would love to see him in the UFC to mix things up and make that division even better than it is today. But in regards to Cyborg, man, what a performance to do that against someone like Pacheco, who is so damn dangerous and proved her gameness that not only can she be a hammer, she could be a nail as well. And, took a absolute beating against Cyborg, and also Cyborg showing her versatility that not only can she strike, she's known for a big knockout power, but she respected, I think, the game of Pacheco enough on the feet that she decided to utilize her high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and takedown skills, man, and showed her power and technical ability there as well. So that is a massive win for Chris Cyborg, who just continues to do it at a high level, man. Unbelievable.
And what a legacy. And I know Amanda Nunes is the consensus greatest of all time, and Ronda Rousey's championship reign, I think, deserves some historical mention. Joanna Jędrzejczyk's strawweight run, Rose Namajunas with 2 wins over Zhang Weili, 2 wins over Joanna Jędrzejczyk. These are the greatest fighters of all time, Valentina Shevchenko, right? But how about Chris Cyborg at 39 years of age? Incredible. She has been maligned at times by the fan base and talking heads and others, but this is a tremendous accomplishment. And when she talked in totality about her career, this one feels pretty special to her. So we congratulate her. In terms of Francis Ngannou, real quick, and we got Daniel Cormier coming up here in a minute, some UFC 308 stuff. But do you think we'll see him compete again in mixed martial arts or boxing? I tend to think we will.
Yeah, I don't know about MMA. For me, again, he's a mixed martial arts fighter. I do not really want to see him fight in boxing again, even though that's going to be the big payday. So if he fights again, I would love to see him fight over in MMA. The big problem, however, is the fact that there's not a whole lot of challenges for him at this present moment for him to probably want to go to the gym every day and put in a really hard camp. So that's going to be the challenge. If someone comes along, then I would say, yes, he will fight again. It will be an MMA. But as of right now, I don't see it happening.
All right, coming up on Wednesday night, you'll get all of Ken Flo's predictions for UFC 308 Topuria versus Holloway. We got poll questions out right now as to who you think will win the final big fights of the night, and the betting lines are exactly the same. Khamzat Chimaev and Ilia Topuria are both minus 238 right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. The comeback on the underdogs, plus 195 for Max Holloway and Robert Whittaker. So oftentimes we like to ask the masses, especially when the numbers are identical, as they are. Kenny, you're not going to give your predictions until later in the week, so perhaps you can do this without spoiling it for the masses. But of those 4 fighters, or of those 2 betting underdogs, you can take it any which way you want. Is there a fighter that you're most confident in? Because, man, Robert Whittaker's pretty confident that Khamzat Chimaev's not going to do what he's done to everybody else.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Listen, after talking to freaking Ige, I would say Holloway. You can't underestimate that guy's experience and his heart and his gameness and his Hawaiianness. The guy is just that's a word. It's a Hawaiianness. Yeah, that should be one of his strengths. When he comes up to the cage, the dude's an absolute beast, right? And to see him perform like he did against one of the more dangerous dudes, a division up against Gaethje, shows that Max Holloway continues to improve. So to me, gosh, man, that would be the one. But Whittaker is a stud too. He could pull it off. But Topuria facing Holloway in a 5-rounder, Holloway's tough to bet against.
That is tremendous intel from Dan Ige in terms of that recent session or sessions with Max Holloway. And I also think it dovetails with what he was saying about the 80% inwardly focused, because we talked about this on the ANIKFLORIANPODCAST, I believe, Raquel Pennington, right? How she took everything inward. How would I go about beating me? And it seems as though for Dan Ige, that has been the approach. And I think for Max Holloway, right? There were a lot of people that were burying this guy,
Yep.
Now try to become the featherweight champion for the first time since 2019. A man who knows a thing or two about winning belts across multiple divisions. UFC Hall of Famer, UFC commentator, joining us on getaway day to Abu Dhabi, no less. I mean, this guy, you're flying tonight. You're in studio. We appreciate the time, champ. How we living?
I'm trying to get this camera shot working. I put this new camera up, John.
Oh yeah, it looks pretty good. Well,
this is the FaceTime camera, because the camera that I put on, it has to turn off or it doesn't charge. So I'm going way high tech and I'm just not prepared for it. But John, I must say that is a great Daniel Cormier Wrestling Academy looking shirt you got on there with the Gilroy on the logo. I love that. What's up, Flo?
What up, man?
What's up, baby?
Well, my man, if you look closely, we have that Daniel Cormier bobblehead too.
That's
over my right shoulder. We got it all going on today. We appreciate your time, and there's so many different things that we can get into. I'm sure we probably don't need to talk about Donald Cowboy Cerrone, because everywhere I go, your comments have been repurposed, as is often the case. What you say on YouTube, it gets all over the airwaves.
All over the place. And I wasn't trying to just crap on Donald. I just feel maybe I'm wrong, Flo. Maybe you guys.
I missed this. Give me some context here. What the heck happened?
What I said was I don't love the idea of a guy leaving the testing pool for 2 years, openly speaking of being on steroids, then saying I'm coming back now. Right?
He wants to come back. He wants to come back.
He wants to fight.
Wow.
He wants to fight. But man, you start getting on the sauce. You're in the gym. You're training. You feel good. You're beating on young dudes.
Right.
You kind of might trick yourself into thinking you can do something you can't. But I think you should stay retired. And I just don't like it. I don't like, because, dude, it's gonna, especially with no more USADA, right, J.A.? It's dude. You start a world where these guys get hurt or something. They go out, do what they got to do. McGregor, it looks like he clearly did it, went and did what he had to do. Now you're back in testing.
Right.
You come back to fighting. It's not fair.
One thing you said, though, and I wrote it down as you said it, openly speaking about it, right? Because if the UFC allows Donald Cowboy Cerrone to do this, they set a really bad precedent. And even though Dana White was dismissive of this, he didn't necessarily say he was dismissive of it because of what Donald had been doing. It's more just about a guy who's maybe past his prime. But thank goodness guys like you, whose words wield a lot of power, come out and say what you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Because John, imagine this: before Cowboy left, he lost 6 in a row and had 1 no contest. Imagine if this dude come back and start winning. Imagine if this dude comes back and starts to win fights. It's like, come on, man! Like, it's so clear. It's like, and the competition level that he fought at to start and where he ended that run was at Jim Miller, right? So Flo, it was like he started with Tony and Gaethje and all those guys. And it went down to Nico Price, and then it was what was the kid's name? Alex Morono, and he lost to those guys. And they're like, okay, let's give him a guy in Jim who is also a little bit older. Let's see how that goes. Right. And he lost that one too. Imagine if he comes back and starts winning. Then how do you quantify how much is Donald and how much is what he did before to get back there?
Right. And even if public opinion is that maybe Conor McGregor or other athletes who have broken a leg have done something, right? They haven't necessarily openly done it. The great Daniel Cormier with us here live on the Anik and Florian podcast. Be sure to check out his robust YouTube channel. So I'm going to let Kenflo get in here on UFC 308, but I'm having you on today for one reason. Thursday night, you and I are not going out to dinner in Abu Dhabi.
No, we are not.
We are going to attend Power Slap.
Yes.
So I think you would have realized great success in that endeavor, but I'm glad that that you were in sports that allowed you to play defense. But what is your relative degree of excitement to be octagon side, so to speak, for Power Slap 29 or whatever the fuck it is?
I've only seen Power Slap one time. So I went in the very beginning when they first started, and I watched it, and there were no slapping knockouts.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there were no knockouts. There were no slap knockouts. So I kind of got bored very quick and I left. Then we did one for the weigh-in show where this big dude walked up there, played college football, and slapped the shit out of somebody. Dude went face down. I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. So then I kind of bought into it. But again, I'm a dude that watch Over the Top. I watch Over the Top. Remember the movie?
Yeah.
I was like into that. I was in the Over the Top. I was in the Bloodsport. I watch all the Bruce Lee movies. So anything that's a little bit kind of cheesy, man, I'm in. I was like the biggest Police Academy fan in the world. So me too. I'm in, bro. I'm in. I want to watch it.
I can't wait.
Lincoln Hawk, one of the greatest characters of all time. Dude, so listen, I don't know what the deal is. You're tied into all these guys. Chimaev looked like he switched up his camp a little bit, now training with one of Buvai Sarsaitiev's wrestling coaches from back in the day, one of the greatest wrestlers that I've ever seen in my life. And then it seemed like Topuria might be switching up his camp. Is that accurate? And what do you think about these changes so quickly, or I guess relatively quickly before these huge fights?
So here's the thing, right? And I didn't even know any of this.
I didn't either.
Okay.
I had no idea that these guys were doing that. But
we'll learn something by Saturday, champ. But right now, he's catching us on a Monday.
Okay, sorry.
Topuria spent $2 million on a personal gym, which is, how does Ilia Topuria have so much money? Does he have family money? I mean, does he have family money? Because he only won the belt last night.
That was quick. Yeah.
Yeah, he must have family money. Look, man, you know, for me, where the concern becomes for these guys, they're both undefeated. What are you looking for change for when you're both undefeated and you're both fighting at the top of the sport? How much better can it be? I remember spending time with Ilya in Anaheim, and it seemed like they were a very tight-knit group. So I would find it more difficult to think that he moved on opposed to Chimaev, because Chimaev was at All-Stars. Chimaev now with Satiev's coach back home more in Chechnya, Russia area. That is less surprising to me than Ilia Topuria moving and changing from those. What's those guys named? Their brothers that have been training.
Yeah, Clement brothers.
Clement brothers. Yeah, they've been training him since he was a little boy. Yeah. So that would be surprising if he moved on.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting, man. And then what do you think about both of those guys that are legitimate stars? You know, I think what are the ways, especially, you know, you've been at the highest level, double champ. What are the ways that you can kind of insulate yourself from maybe believing the hype, you know, because these guys have had a pretty fast rise, man.
Yeah. Hey, Flo, when we started at UFC Tonight, and we all started wearing suits to fights. It was George St. Pierre, and you guys kind of changed the game a little bit. Hey, man, I'm going to tell you one. This Elliot Taporia, boy, he's a sharp dresser.
He dresses nice. He's got good clothes.
He is so sharp, dog. I think the part about Taporia, he believes he's a star. He carries himself like a star. So then in turn, you start to treat him in that way. But his performances have actually made you believe it also, because he submitted Bryce Mitchell, who's a tremendous grappler. He just beat the crap out of Josh Emmett. Then he knocks out Alexander Volkanovski. I just don't know that. I don't know that it's overstated with him. And then Chimaev, he was kind of pushed on us fast, right? And they always say the first impression it leaves the greatest impression. And I believe that our first impression of Khamzat was he beats on these guys. But at the end of the day, when you look back on it, he was supposed to beat on those guys in the way that he did. He was just much better. Then he beat on Lee, and he beat on Gerald Meerschaert. But then when he fought Kamaru Usman, you saw him still win, but it was much more competitive. He started to get tired down the stretch. So you know that the right matchup could prove difficult for him. And I think that's what he has this weekend in Robert Whittaker. Robert's going to extend him into a long fight and make it hard for him. So it makes, I think Chimaev is a little bit less known commodity, at least in my regard, when it comes to where he stands. I think he can be the champion. What if he doesn't blow through somebody as we had seen him do on so many occasions? We saw Kamaru, man. Kamaru found a lot of success late in that fight, and many felt walking away that if that fight was 5 rounds, it was really going to start to sway towards Usman's favor.
All right, I got one more. I got the guy here. I got to ask him. I don't have the same kind of eye for wrestling like you do, man. So in your opinion, Chimaev says he's the best wrestler in the UFC, period. But obviously there's another guy at Bo Nickel in his division that is pretty damn good himself. From what you've seen as far as wrestling executed in MMA, who is the better wrestler, Nickel or Chimaev?
I think it's hard to Bo Nickel's the better wrestler, 1,000%. These guys put on a pair of wrestler shoes. Bo Nickel would beat him 10-0, and he'd probably beat him, in 3-minute periods in wrestling. I don't know that Chimaev would make it through the first 3-minute period in a wrestling match.
Yep.
But in terms of mixed martial arts with the striking and everything, Chimaev, because of his experience, right? He's had to do it against higher level competition. We even saw with I don't know the guy's name. He's from Denver that Bo fought last time.
Cody Brundage.
Cody Brundage. At times, because Bo's so inexperienced, he would rush takedowns, right? He would throw punches wild to rush a takedown. Chimaev doesn't really do that anymore because he's been in there with better competition. So in terms of implementing it at this stage, I would say Chimaev. But I cannot say that in a year and a half, 2 years from now, when Bo Nickel is more comfortable and confident in the striking, that he won't be better at implementing wrestling in terms of mixed martial arts. But just today, straight wrestling, Bo Nickel in the first period. MMA wrestling, Khamzat Chimaev, because he's been able to do it. He took Usman down multiple times, and that was only because he was setting him up the right way.
Yeah. We got a few more minutes here with Daniel Cormier, who goes wheels up to Abu Dhabi tonight. He'll have all of his DC check-ins coming up shortly after media day and throughout the week. I just have to say here, in terms of Khamzat Chimaev, to add a little context, right? Bro, he's the most electric fucking force in the game still, okay? With Bo Nickel, Raul Rosas Jr., Khamzat Chimaev, certain fighters, when they walk, bro, I'm jumping out of my fucking skin. So say what you want about Chimaev, that he hasn't competed in a championship setting yet, that he's pulled out of a lot of fights. But correct me if I'm wrong. When he hits that tunnel, bro, there are a few things like it.
John, you and I, we have the privilege of sitting with these fighters. And Chimaev is one of those guys that has a star quality about him that isn't because. So sometimes we barely can understand what he's saying. He's speaking English, but he's spoken English, right? So we love him for those reasons in his personality, but we love him because he's such a tremendous fighter. He's terrifying. He's as good as they come. And that makes him special. But the rest of those guys, Raul Rosas Jr., love him. Not the same. Bo Nickel, not the same. This Chimaev dude is the real deal. And honestly, John, you see it in the numbers. Like, people watch when I sit down with Chimaev. They tap into what he's doing, and that is only because it's so unknown as to who this man is. It's crazy. It's fun to watch and be a part of. But like when we sit down with him on Thursday and he walks in that room, everybody's going to be on guard and at attention, right? Like,
oh yeah,
I'm not going to say today.
Hopefully he shows up and he does not have to weigh in at 171 pounds, which is a very good thing. All right, last thing before I get you out of here. So there was a sit down with Ilia Topuria and Max Holloway. And again, in the nature of your comments just being aggregated across the entire fucking MMA stratosphere, you were suggestive. And this says nothing of your close personal relationship with Max Holloway, right? You are more than able to stay objective. And to that end, you suggested that perhaps Ilia Topuria's talk has not only been the right approach in the lead up to the fight, but perhaps it has struck a nerve with Max Holloway. I don't necessarily agree, but care to expand upon that for us, if you would.
That was until I spoke to him last Sunday. When I made that video about how I thought Ilia was getting to him, don't fall for the trap. That was until I spoke to him last Sunday. Yeah. When he was on his way out to Abu Dhabi, he called me because he does that, right? He does that before he'll call me and we'll have a conversation. We'll talk. He was normal. And I was like, okay, now I get it. Maybe in the moment you start to get a little worked up, but he's as cool as he's ever been. It's not bothering him, man. He's ready to go fight. Yeah. But again, Chael kind of thought that Ilia was playing a game. I said he's not. He really is speaking his truth. Ilia Topuria says all these things because he believes it. When John, I sat with him in Anaheim and he walked in there with his team. Yo, they're all in the same suits. And I'm not talking about like, they're not all wearing like the same sweatsuit like Henry Cejudo and Eric Alvarez with diamonds and shit all over them. They're in Versace, Flo. The whole team's in Versace, dog. They walk in. We have this conversation. Damn. I'm talking to El Matador, whose fucking hair is just like, his hair's like, just like right perfect in place. We're like bumping each other and shit. Like I bump him, his hair doesn't fucking move. El Matador just sitting there telling me how he's going to beat the shit out of Alexander Volkanovski. And the whole time I'm looking at him like, well, everybody say that. You know, he's easy to say that. And then you get in there with that dude. And then he does it. Yeah. He's only speaking his truth. Right. So when he says all this stuff, it's not like he's trying to goad Max into doing something crazy. He's talking what he believes will happen. I just don't know that he's ever been in there with anyone like Max Holloway. But that's why this is awesome. And that's why I believe that for my money, this is the best fight we have. I know Bilal's fighting Hamzat. I know John's fighting Stipe. I think on the record right now, on paper, what's scheduled, this is the most competitive and best really indicator of what high-level mixed martial arts should look like.
I agree. Take it right there as the last word from the ultimate competitor, the Hall of Famer, Daniel Cormier at DC_MMA. Over under $10,000 did I spend on 3 tickets to Taylor Swift last night in Miami.
Oh, hey, you spent easy over 10,000 to go see Taylor Swift.
Under 10 G's for 3. We'll talk about it in Abu Dhabi, champ. You got to go. Thank you.
You guys. You're the best. Later, boys.
Daniel Cormier with us live on the Anik and Florian podcast. Under $10,000.
Wow. Okay.
Taylor Swift. I waited until the last minute. And in terms of real quick, we got to get to Ray Longo, but what Eric Nicksick was saying earlier about my connections, that's just not my style. I don't ask anybody for anything. And I did have one possible connection on Taylor Swift tickets. It fell through and took matters into my own hands. And my daughter, Riley, and my daughter Tatum, they were not going to miss Taylor Swift, as my close friends know. Now joining us, though, is a friend of mine on an entirely different level. The great Ray Longo joins us. Hey, how we doing here on an early Monday afternoon, Raymond? It's great to see you, brother.
Well, we're doing good. We're doing good. Yeah, I took the kids to see Taylor Swift years ago. I don't remember the tickets had to be, totally different at the Prudential Center. Yeah, that had to be 15 years ago, maybe.
How about that? No, I just felt like it was a once in a lifetime experience for my daughters. My eldest daughter's like, I'm not even a Swiftie anymore, but the magnitude of this event and experience is not lost on me. So Ray, when we push you back, for example, and I try to get ahead of this about 48 hours ago, from say 11:30 a.m. live to 12:15 p.m. live, to what extent does that fuck with your day?
Fucks with it a little bit.
Okay. So
I'll figure it out when I get to the gym, but
all right. So because that doesn't always get communicated to me, and that's why I'm bringing it to the airwaves today. It's in my fucking notes, right? So I just ask our producer to reach out to you and see if that is an option, right? But I can always build the show around the star of the program.
Oh my God, that's
right. From United Arab Emirates, sometimes I like to retain a little bit of flexibility.
Wait, hold on. Are you there yet? Or no? You're not there, are you?
No, I don't travel with my Anakin Florian podcast mosaic to Abu Dhabi, but maybe I should.
You should.
Oh, I would think you pack that thing in a suitcase. You take it everywhere with you.
Yeah. No, I am leaving tomorrow.
Nice.
So, yeah. So how are you doing?
Very good. Very good. We had a great weekend. Shout out to Freddie V, Anthony Delemy, huge knockout, wins the CFFC championship. First round knockout, Armando Getcha, first round knockout. The team got back on track. I think we were struggling a little bit, but nothing lasts forever.
Nice.
Yeah, congrats to all of the winners, to you. And how about Delemy, dude? That knockout was insane. To win a title like that?
Nice. Yeah, absolutely beautiful, man. Kid's doing great. He's got a great job. He's got a good future in the sport. I think he's actually firing on all cylinders, man. So really happy for him.
Well, speaking of firing on all cylinders, that has been you on this podcast over the last month or so. And you listen to annoying talking heads like me say things like, well, Umar Nurmagomedov's definitely going to be next, and he's going to be the betting favorite against Merab. And you hear me say all of these things. And obviously I say them in a respectful way, but maybe I say them as fact. And then you say, well, why is Umar, with one signature win over Corey Sandhagen, fight prior, he beat a last-minute replacement. Why is he going to be the guy? And then you see Umar Nurmagomedov get booked to fight December 14th.
No, but it's listen, that's first off, I get tortured like, oh, Merab's afraid. Merab ain't afraid of nobody. You got to be fucking kidding me. That's a joke. But the point was, look at the line of killers he had to go through to get his title shot. And where I think the beauty of this, Kenny, is he got through him. Now you're stuck with a guy that beat 4 or 5 legends and ex-champs in a row, built his confidence up to another level. Now you got to deal with him. You know what I mean? It's almost like it was the best thing that could ever happen to him, even though my point was just, why does one guy have to go one route and another guy goes another route? That's the only point. Nobody's fucking scared of anybody.
Well,
That's a crock of fucking bullshit. These guys are actually just sick. But it was just a statement. I mean, look, I think Umar's a great fighter, 100%. That's going to be a great fight when they fight. But I mean, it was just an observation on why does one guy have to go one way and another guy goes another way? That's it. Whatever that is,
Well, I mean, and I don't know if I'm saying you're right as much as I'm saying that Umar Nurmagomedov is going to have to fight Song Yadong in Tampa, Florida, December 14th, and health is wealth, right? You got to come out of that fight healthy, right?
Yeah.
So,
a lot of things can happen in MMA, man.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Not many guys survive this sport without going to the operating room a couple of times.
Right.
So hold you back and whatever. So I think that's a great fight. I think Umar should be able to pull that off, and then at least we got a little momentum going. Let's build it up a little bit.
So do you still believe that Umar Nurmagomedov will be the guy who shows up in your bracket for Merab's first title defense?
No, I think Merab will fight probably before he's ready to fight the next time. I would think Merab wants to get a fight, I think the Figueiredo fight makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
He was an ex-champ. He's doing great in the division, moving up. I think it's got, they got the traction of, champ versus champ, even though it's a different weight division. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's a great fight. That's not an easy fight. There is no easy fights. You know what I mean? So if you're scared of somebody, there's the wrong division to be in. I tell you.
Yeah, for sure, man. So, Ray, huge fights, man. I think this is the best fight of the year when it comes to Topuria and Holloway, and I still don't know which way I'm going to go. Who do you see winning that fight and why?
Oh man, I tell you, this is this is really tough, Kenny, because I tell you, if Holloway has a performance like he did against Gaethje, he's going to have a really good night. Now he's got to go back to 45. I don't know if that plays into anything, cutting that extra 10 pounds. Does that affect his performance? But he's been able to take big shots from big hitters like Poirier when he went up. I mean, Dustin and Gaethje's a huge hitter. So I don't think he's going to have a problem that way. But, man, Topuria is squared away in every aspect of the game. I still think we haven't seen, seen him really mix it up if he had to. His boxing is so on point, and he's so disciplined moving forward that he's been really very successful. Nobody's moving like Max, though. So I think the movement and the length, and again, I think Max is in his zone coming off of that Gaethje fight, and I think Topuria is in his zone. And I even like what Topuria said to him. Let's do the 10-second thing at the beginning of the fight. Let's not wait till the end of the fight. I mean, this guy's a gangster too. So I don't know which way I'm going. I'm super excited for the fight. I think it's a great fight, and I think if Max comes in with that same fire he had with Gaethje, man, it could be a nightmare.
Okay, well,
so
my next question: how would you compare Gaethje's skills to Topuria's skills?
No, Topuria's got the better skills. I don't know if he hits as hard as I think. Gaethje's a mad hatter. Everything he throws is 150%. So he's a scary guy to be on the opposite side because he's swinging for the fences. So I think right now Topuria has got probably the best boxing in maybe in the UFC. I mean, he looks squared away. Max's boxing is good, but it's different. Topuria is more the classical type of boxer, but he did handle Calvin Kattar, which is a really good boxer. So there's a couple of if he gets in that type of zone, if Topuria lets him get that comfortable moving around and talking and slipping and sliding, I think it could be a long night, and I think both guys have a lot to prove. I think that's the beauty of the fight. This is crazy. This is a crazy fight.
Oh, now.
And Topuria, I love Max Holloway and I love Topuria. I wouldn't even make a prediction, but they both have to fight. I think their best fight to win. Like if Topuria could knock Max Holloway out, I think there's no stopping this kid.
Oh my gosh. I just can't remember hearing from a lot of experts like yourselves, right? MMA commentators, analysts, coaches, fighters who are picking Ilia Topuria. And I understand the love affair that this sport has with Max Holloway, right?
Well, that's part of it, John, though. Yeah.
37.5% of his life on the active roster. Think about that, right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Nearly 40% of his life on the active roster. I understand why he is as beloved as he is, but Ray, you're the first person who I think has maybe even sat on the fence a little bit. I just feel as though all of these fighters that I talk to are picking Max Holloway, and yet every time I go to the DraftKings Sportsbook application on my phone, the price on Topuria gets bigger. It's not like the Max money is coming in or the numbers getting smaller. So I don't know. I can't fucking wait to get there. I'm energetic.
Yeah. No, this is I'm super excited for this fight. Like super excited. Because this has the potential to be a classic, man. And I think, again, I like where both guys' heads are at going into this fight. Holloway seems confident as shit coming off of that win, and so does the other guy. I don't know. I like the way Topuria talks. Obviously, he's a friend of Marab, so I like everybody.
Ray, we just talked to DC, and he was saying that he believes that Topuria is not getting in Max's head, and I probably believe him. However, Max, because of his Hawaiianness, that's a word. Do you think he starts that fight and he points to the center of the cage? Maybe not to start, but at some point during that fight, do you think he points like this to Topuria? Because I feel that that might be Toporia's best chance at winning the fight.
100%, Kenny. I do
You
think he's gonna. I do think he's gonna point, he's got balls. That guy. Come on, those are Hawaiian nutsacks, man. That guy's point. I think he's 100% pointing, and I think you're right. You don't want to step in the pocket and stay there with Topuria. He's too accurate. He's too economical with his punches. And look, the kid's a fight. I mean, that would be hysterical. And I think that's what I loved when Topuria said that. Man, let's do it at the beginning. Right. Why are we waiting at the end when you already won the fight? You're already winning. Let's fucking put it all on the line, man. It's like the Wild West, man. Let's have a shootout. You know what I mean? So I'm really excited for the fight.
So 3 p.m. Eastern for the pay-per-view this Saturday, Ray. Would you rather it be at 10 p.m. your time, or do you like that afternoon matinee?
I love the 7 p.m. That's my favorite time because
look at this fucking guy. I mean,
you're asking me a question. What do you want me to do? Oh yeah, 10 p.m. No, let's make it midnight. Let's start the fight.
Do you understand get to bed by 5? Many of our listeners are in Europe and Australia and have to revolve their whole sleeping schedule and lives around these fights happening in the middle of the night or early in the morning? So Americans, as far as I'm concerned, North Americans can't really complain.
That's why they hate us. We changed
the
time schedules.
Well, no, if you don't like a UFC fight night at the Apex that starts at 10 p.m. Eastern, you just do what I do. Don't fucking watch. I watch it the next morning for the podcast. I'm not awake at 10 p.m.
You got good discipline. I can't do that. I gotta.
Well, there have been times where I've gotten burned by spoilers on X, but for the most part, I'm able to turn my phone face down and go on the UFC application and not the ESPN application and actually watch the fight. All right, I have to ask you about this fight, if I could. Khamzat Chimaev and Robert Whittaker. And I have talked over the years about this undeniable electricity that Khamzat Chimaev brings to the octagon. And certainly you can harken back to the COVID days when he fought twice in 10 days. And he just has this ferocity and this fighting style and this enigmatic, polarizing nature that makes him one of one to me. And I've talked about other people like Bo Nickel and Raul Rosas Jr. and DC was just suggested they shouldn't even be in the conversation. So how do you feel about not just the fight, but Khamzat Chimaev and his star power and your excitement level when he competes, however infrequently?
Right. Well, that's the infrequently is the problem. But yeah, at one point it looked like, he was on a roll. I mean, I guess it was during COVID when he first came out and he fought a couple of times. Yeah, definitely star power. As far as the fight, I do get excited because he brings that energy of, he wants to kill everybody. I love that, when he's just going berserk in there.
Yeah.
But 5-round fight against Whittaker is going to be, I hope his gas tank holds up because I say Whittaker, if he gets him into the later rounds, he might finish the fight.
So it sounds like Ray Longo might have a wager on Robert Whittaker at plus 195 this weekend, or no?
No, but I would take that bet at 195, 100%.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And if only I was allowed to bet Ken Flo, I would jump all over that.
Right?
Ken Flo, do you know who you're picking later in the week, Chimaev and Whittaker at this moment?
Ooh.
Yes.
Can I just ask you then about the betting line? And if you feel as though with these last two fights, real quick, and then we'll get Ray out of here.
Yeah.
Like the betting lines are the same. Like, I'm trying to ask Kenny in a thoughtful way without giving a prediction. Kenny, do you think there's value on Robert Whittaker plus 195?
I do.
Yeah.
I do think there's value. Yeah. I mean, Whittaker, just with his experience, man, that alone, they're talking about a former champ. He had an interesting camp leading up to this against Alaskarov, right? Or an interesting fight against a guy like Alaskarov, who some may think is a similar style matchup. So, yeah, always value on him.
Yeah, plus, I'll tell you, Kenny, I think the 5 rounds changes the whole fight to me. 3 rounds, I think Chimaev, he always comes out strong. He might secure the first 2, but I mean, look, he didn't look like a world beater against Usman. Gilbert Burns, I thought, held his own when he was really considered an absolute killer. So Whittaker's been around the game. He's fought the best of the best. Still looks like he's got something. I think I'm taking Whittaker in that fight. Plus 195, I think, is a good bet.
All right, my man. Well, we appreciate your time as always. 25 more sleeps until Madison Square Garden. So,
Oh
is that
yeah,
the
baby.
big show
Hey,
on your horizon?
real quick on a couple of things.
Please.
First off, I ran into Ryan Hall, your buddy, at the fight.
Yeah.
What
I saw
a
That's
dude!
awesome.
What a great dude!
He's the man.
What a nice, just a nice guy, man. It's always good. Just I don't really know him that well, but whenever I see him, he's just, the guys were happy to meet him, and he's just
That's
such a
so cool.
humble, nice kid. I just wanted to put that out there. And before I go, wait, I don't know if you guys talked about it. I was blown away by the Fluffy Hernandez fight. I thought that kid. Let me tell you something. I love that fight. That systematic breakdown, the perfect mix of just the boxing to the takedowns, he was fucking relentless in a really pretty way, man. Against a guy that could jump up in the air and do whatever the hell he's going to do. You never know. But he broke that. That's the way to break somebody. If people watching the fight, watching the show want to know how to break somebody, watch Fluffy Hernandez. We had said he always finds a way to win, but this was way beyond that. And he did get hurt at the beginning.
He did.
But just that's a scrapper, man. That was a great showcase fight for him to be in the main event. Because before that, it was, I didn't really have a grip on him. I think I met him one time, and he seems like a sweetheart of a guy. But what a fucking fight. I love that fight. I love that fight, man. I thought that was just a great showcase for him. And like, again, I thought it was just a perfect mix of boxing to the takedowns, relentlessness, grounded. He did everything. He could have stood up with him. Probably could have knocked him out if he wanted. Just the way his game plan was. I'm high on that kid. I really hope he does well.
Dude, I'm so glad you got that analysis out there. We should clip that off and send it to him. I couldn't agree with you more. And when I think about these offensively inclined fighters, right, just chain and takedowns and mixing takedowns and strikes all the goddamn time. Colby Covington and Merab Dvalishvili and even Ricky Simone, former victim of Merab, and Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. He's him, man. There's no doubt.
Oh, beautiful. It was actually beautiful. But anyway, what else we got?
Buddy. Last question. So we had something thematically that came up when we did a show last week of which you were not a part. And I was asking our guests, and this was sort of improv. I didn't expect to do this, but are you or do you consider yourself a good guy or a bad guy?
Me? I consider myself a good guy.
Yeah.
Unless it's time to be a bad guy.
Fucking brilliant answer.
Wait, the other thing. Well, hold on. But I had one other thing that you made.
Wait, are you going off of this good guy, bad guy thing and on to something
No, that's no, no, definitely not. No, we got to get Dom Cruz back on, dude. That guy's the best, man. I want to do a podcast with him where we just like go back and forth with each other. Thought he was hysterical. I think that he's different. He's a different cat, that guy. I loved it.
So
no, he don't give a shit.
After that episode, we're suggesting that you and Dom should do a podcast together. I think it would be the yin and yang.
Based on that last thing, I didn't even realize it, but guys at the gym were coming up to me and saying when he said he was a chameleon. I said, "Would you put on a yarmulke to go see John's family?" This is I didn't even know what I swear to God, I didn't even know what I was saying, Kenny, when they were bringing it up. Then I accused somebody of being spiteful. What they did? No, not spiteful. No, he's definitely a company man. He's not going that way. He's the guy's priceless, man.
It's hilarious.
Love him.
He was great.
I think you guys should go do a podcast.
I'd love it. Because he is technically so sound, and he could. He's just got a different slant on.
Yeah.
Have we secured the rights of Dominic Cruz and Ray Longo though?
No, I don't want.
We're going to let them go.
Oh, come on. No, I'm just
good
kidding.
guy, bad show. Is that what somebody said? Good guy, bad show.
Yeah, that's what they said.
Well, clearly Daniel Cormier doesn't listen to the Anik and Florian podcast because if you heard that old conversation about his show a couple of weeks ago.
Is that? Oh, I don't even know this.
But no, I wish you and Dom all the best. Just give us 2 weeks notice so we can find a note for your segment. But no, I wish you guys.
I want to tie it all in. I'm a team player. I want to.
It's under our banner. Only under our banner.
We have talked to Cruzy about doing something monthly. So yeah, maybe there is an opportunity. But if you guys do want to launch your own show, I do think that it would have a lot of traction. We wish you all the best with it. Trying to go live every week for a decade.
How about bad guy, great minute?
Hey.
No.
I'm going to think
We
of
got to
some
work on the
names.
title. We'll work on the
Yeah,
title.
for a Dominic Cruz, Ray Longo segment or show. But hey, we appreciate you coming on a little bit later than normal, and I'll get with our producer and try to shore that communication up in the future. But yeah, tell your students that we apologize for keeping you a little bit late today.
Definitely will. And listen, have a safe flight, buddy. I'm looking forward to this weekend, and I'll be in touch with you.
Thank you, my man. And I beg you to get a haircut before Madison Square Garden.
I'm getting a haircut soon. Take care.
Good.
Goodbye.
Yeah, you too. My goodness gracious. That's the Ray Longo Minute every week here on the Anik and Florian podcast. We got to get out of here. Thanks to everybody for indulging us live over the last 90 minutes or so. Thank you to our guests, Dan EGE, ERIC NICKSICK, live from Abu Dhabi. Of course, the great Daniel Cormier, Ray Longo right there. And we'll be back with you fine folks in about 48 hours. We will have a full preview with predictions for UFC 308 Topuria versus Holloway. Today, just the treetops. We will dive in coming up Wednesday night on the DraftKings Network and on YouTube and everywhere else. Our producer is Cody Merrill. With that, for Ken Flo, I'm John Anik. Thank you all for watching, for listening, for subscribing. Don't forget, johnanik.com. We have our Halloween design out. All the Anik and Florian podcast merchandise is there, as is Bilal Muhammad's championship merch, which you can get with promo code OneMoreSleep. Thank you to everybody for watching the show. We'll talk to you on Wednesday night, and I'll be in Abu Dhabi. Until then, you'll later.